The city lights flickered like diamonds scattered across the night, and inside one of the tallest skyscrapers, Ethan Williams sat alone at his marble dining table. A table that could seat 12, yet tonight it only held one man and his thoughts. Billionaire. Heir to the Williams empire. Every woman in town wanted him, or so they said. But Ethan knew better. They wanted his last name, his fortune, his fame, never him. He had seen it too many times. Smiles that bloomed the moment his credit card appeared. Compliments that always circled back to what he owned, never who he was. The loneliness behind his wealth grew louder than the hum of the city below. One night, after another meaningless charity event, Ethan made a decision that would change everything. He wanted to find real love, pure, unfiltered, untouched by gold or greed. So he disappeared. 2 days later, he stood before a modest mansion on the outskirts of town, dressed in old jeans and a faded shirt. The house belonged to the Marlowe family. Wealthy, respected, but kind-hearted. They were looking for a new house help after their longtime caretaker had retired. Ethan, using a false name, Eli, applied for the job. "Do you have any experience?" asked Mrs. Marlowe, a graceful woman in her 50s. Ethan hesitated. "I've worked around people all my life. I learn fast." Something in his tone, calm, grounded, made her nod. "You start tomorrow." And so the billionaire became invisible. Days turned into weeks. Ethan swept floors, washed dishes, fixed squeaky doors, and learned how ordinary life felt. It was strangely freeing, to be unseen, to earn each smile without his name or fortune attached. Then she appeared. Amara, the Marlowe's niece. A quiet, intelligent young woman who had just moved in after losing her parents. She was nothing like the women Ethan had met before. She didn't chase attention. She loved books, spoke little, and spent her evenings in the garden, sketching the sunset. The first time they spoke was over a broken vase. "I'm so sorry," Ethan said, picking up the pieces before she could. Amara smiled faintly. "It's okay. It was just glass." "No," he replied softly. "It was something you loved." She looked up then, really looked, and something in his eyes made her pause. They were gentle, humble, but carried a kind of sadness she couldn't place. From that day, their paths crossed more often. She began leaving him tea when he worked late, asking about his life in fragments. "Where are you from? Do you have family? What makes you happy?" Ethan kept his answers simple. He told her he came from far away, that he used to work for people who forgot what kindness meant. But when she laughed at his awkward jokes or shared her sketches with him, he felt something stir, something he hadn't felt in years. One evening, the rain poured relentlessly. The house was empty. The Marlowes had gone out for a weekend trip. Amara sat near the fireplace, sketching, when the thunder startled her and her pencil slipped. Ethan entered quietly, carrying a tray of soup. "You shouldn't be working tonight," she said. "I wanted to," he smiled. "Besides, it's quieter when it rains." She looked at him for a long moment. "You're not like other house helps." He froze. "What do you mean?" "There's something in your eyes," she said softly. "Like you've lived many lives but carry them all in silence." For the first time, Ethan didn't have words. The room fell still, save for the whisper of rain against glass. And in that silence, something shifted. The walls between them, class, wealth, lies, trembled. But love built on a lie never stands forever. The next morning, Amara overheard Mrs. Marlowe on a phone call. "Yes, I know the Williams family. I can't believe their son vanished. The news said he was missing for months now." Ethan froze in the hallway. The search had begun. His world, the one he had built with simplicity and truth, was about to collide with the one he ran from. That evening, Amara found him standing in the garden, rain drenching his shirt, eyes heavy with conflict. "Eli," she said, stepping closer. "What's going on? Who are you really?" Ethan turned slowly, his voice breaking. "The man you think you know doesn't exist." Her breath hitched. "Then who does?" He looked at her, heart torn. Someone who wanted to be loved for his soul, not his name. Someone who's been lying to you. Amara's eyes glistened with confusion and pain. You lied to me. All this time? I had to, he whispered. I needed to know if love could exist without wealth. The truth hung heavy in the air, fragile as glass. And before she could reply, headlights appeared through the rain, sleek black cars rolling into the driveway. The Williams crest gleamed on their doors. Ethan closed his eyes. They've found me. Amara stepped back, her world spinning. So, you're him. He nodded slowly. Ethan Williams. She stared, speechless. The man who swept floors and fixed light bulbs was one of the richest men in the country. The mansion door opened, and men in suits approached. Sir, your father's waiting. We need to take you home. Ethan turned to her one last time. I didn't mean to deceive you. I only wanted something real. Her voice trembled. And what am I supposed to believe now, Ethan? That the billionaire can feel like a servant? Or that the servant was ever real? He couldn't answer. All he could do was look at her, the only person who'd ever seen him beyond his name, as the rain washed away everything he had built. And as the cars drove him away into the night, he glanced once more through the fogged window, at the girl who made him feel human again. But destiny wasn't finished with them yet, because what happened next would shake both their worlds forever. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It fell endlessly, as if the sky itself mourned something unseen. Amara sat by her window, clutching the sketchbook Ethan had once admired. Each page carried traces of him. His laughter when she'd tried to draw his crooked smile, the smudges from when he'd accidentally brushed his fingers over her charcoal lines. She had tried to hate him, tried to erase the warmth that lingered in every corner he'd once touched, but her heart betrayed her. She replayed his words in her mind. Asterisk, I wanted something real. Asterisk, they had sounded genuine. Desperate even. But how could she trust a man who'd built their friendship on lies? Still, there was something in the way he had looked at her that final night. Not with guilt, but with heartbreak. In another part of the city, Ethan sat in his father's office, surrounded by polished mahogany and the scent of expensive cigars. His father, Gregory Williams, leaned back in his chair, eyes sharp as glass. So that's where you've been hiding? Pretending to be a servant? He scoffed. You embarrassed this family, Ethan. Do you have any idea how this looks to the board? Ethan stared at the floor, jaw tight. Maybe I don't care how it looks. His father slammed a hand on the desk. You don't care. You're the heir to a billion-dollar empire, and you're out mopping floors like some nobody. Ethan met his father's gaze, unflinching. That's exactly why I did it. I needed to remember what life feels like without money cushioning every fall. Gregory's expression hardened. You've lost your mind. Maybe I finally found it, Ethan murmured. His father sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. You're my son. You have responsibilities. The company needs you. There's a merger next month. I'm not coming back, Ethan interrupted. The room fell silent. Gregory's eyes narrowed. You're serious? Ethan nodded. I can't keep pretending this life is enough. I want something real, something human. His father's voice turned cold. Real? The only real thing in this world is power. Everything else, love, loyalty, friendship, they're illusions built by those who can't afford better. Ethan's chest tightened. Then maybe I'd rather live among the illusion. He turned and walked out before his father could speak again. Outside, the rain greeted him like an old friend. The driver held an umbrella, but Ethan waved it away, stepping into the storm as if daring it to wash his soul clean. That night, he found himself parked outside the Marlowe estate again. The lights were dim, shadows stretching across the garden where they used to talk. He saw Amara's silhouette in her room, her head bowed over her sketchbook. He wanted to go to her to explain everything, but something stopped him. Guilt. She deserved truth, not apologies wrapped in privilege. He drove away before she could see him. Days passed. Then weeks. The world continued spinning, but something in both their hearts refused to move. Amara began painting again, but her colors had changed. muted, melancholic. The servants whispered about how she'd grown quieter, how the laughter she once carried now lingered only in memory. Then one morning, the sound of engines echoed through the driveway again. This time it wasn't Ethan, it was reporters. Cameras flashed, voices shouted questions. "Miss Marlowe, is it true Ethan Williams worked here as a servant? Were you aware of his real identity? Did you have a relationship with him?" Amara's heart pounded as the chaos unfolded. She hadn't spoken to him in over a month, yet his shadow still loomed over her life. Mrs. Marlowe came rushing down the stairs, waving off the cameras. "This is private property. Leave immediately." But it was too late. Within hours, headlines spread everywhere. Billionaire pretends to be servant, falls for employer's niece. Photos of Amara, taken without consent, filled social media feeds. People speculated, mocked, romanticized, but none of them knew the truth. Amara's phone buzzed nonstop, but she ignored every call until one name flashed across the screen. Unknown number. Something told her it was him. She hesitated, then answered. "Amara." Ethan's voice came through, low and weary. Her throat tightened. "You shouldn't be calling me." "I know. But I saw what they're saying about you. I had to make sure you're okay." She laughed bitterly. "Do I sound okay, Ethan? My life's been turned into a headline. I can't even step outside without cameras following me." "I'm so sorry," he said softly. "I never wanted this for you." "Then what did you want?" she snapped. "To play some noble experiment. To test if love can exist without money. Congratulations, you got your answer. It can't. Not when lies are involved." He didn't speak for a long moment. When he finally did, his voice broke. "You're right. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But if I could take it all back, the deceit, the pain, I would." "Then why call me now?" "Because," he whispered, "I'm leaving." Her breath caught. "Leaving?" "Selling my shares. Moving abroad. I can't live this life anymore." There was a long silence, the kind that hurt more than words. "So you're running away again," she said finally. "That's all you ever do." "I'm trying to start over." "Then start by being honest," she said coldly, and ended the call. Ethan stared at the phone, the line dead, her voice echoing in his head. He had hoped she might understand, but perhaps love, once broken, could never be repaired. The next morning, the headlines shifted again. Ethan Williams steps down as CEO. The world buzzed with shock. Reporters speculated that the scandal had forced him out, that he'd gone emotionally unstable. No one knew the truth, that he had chosen peace over power. Meanwhile, Amara received an envelope delivered by hand. Inside was a single letter written in Ethan's unmistakable handwriting. "Amara, I didn't call to ask forgiveness. I called because you deserve to know the truth. The night I met you, I had nothing, not even a name I could trust. You saw me when no one else did. You offered kindness without asking what I could give in return. That's something I'll carry with me forever. I'm leaving tomorrow. But if there's ever a part of you that believes people can change, I'll be waiting. Not as Ethan Williams, not as anyone's heir, but as the man you once knew by the name Eli." She read it twice, then again, her hands trembling. The paper smelled faintly of rain. That night she couldn't sleep. His words followed her into every thought, every breath. Finally she stood, grabbed her coat, and ran out into the night. The sky was clear now, the moon casting silver over the empty streets. She didn't know where she was going, only that something inside her refused to let him vanish again. Across the city, Ethan stood on the balcony of his penthouse, watching the skyline fade into darkness. His packed bags waited by the door, and for once, silence didn't feel like peace, it felt like loss. He had given up everything, wealth, power, even his name, but the one thing he couldn't let go of was her. A faint knock echoed behind him. He turned, confused. The guards were gone, and he wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, the world seemed to pause. There she was, drenched from the night air, eyes glistening with something between anger and longing. Neither spoke. The silence between them was louder than the city below. Finally, she whispered, "You said you wanted something real." "So did I." Ethan's heart stilled. Amara stepped closer, voice trembling. "But real doesn't mean perfect, Ethan. It means broken, messy, honest. Maybe you lied, but somewhere in those lies, there was truth too." He couldn't breathe. "Are you saying—" "I don't know what I'm saying," she interrupted softly. "All I know is I came here because I couldn't let you disappear again." He looked at her like a man seeing light after years in darkness. The city below them was alive. Horns, laughter, life. But all he could hear was her heartbeat. For the first time in months, Ethan smiled, barely whispering, "Then maybe this time, we can build something real together." But before she could reply, a sudden sound broke through the night, the shrill ring of his phone, urgent, insistent. He glanced at the screen, a number he hadn't seen in years. His father's assistant. He hesitated, dread creeping into his chest. When he finally answered, a voice spoke, cold and shaken. "Mr. Williams, there's been an accident." "Your father." The phone slipped slightly from Ethan's trembling hand, his knuckles white around the edge of the sleek device. The voice on the other end continued, steady yet heavy with the weight of what it carried. "Mr. Williams, your father's car. It lost control on the highway. We've brought him to St. Augustine's Hospital. It doesn't look good." For a heartbeat, everything in the room disappeared. The hum of the city, the glimmer of lights reflected through the glass, even Amara's voice calling his name. The words struck him like a slow, silent thunder. His father. The man he had clashed with all his life, whose coldness had built the walls around Ethan's heart, was lying somewhere between this world and the next. He didn't remember driving there. The roads blurred, the traffic lights melted into streams of color. Amara sat silently beside him, her hand resting gently on his arm. He didn't speak. He couldn't. When they reached the hospital, the smell of antiseptic hit him hard, sharp, sterile, unforgiving. A doctor, pale and solemn, led them down a corridor washed in white light. "We did what we could," he said quietly. "But it's only a matter of time." Inside the room, Gregory Williams lay still, tubes snaking across his chest, machines whispering faintly beside him. The man who once seemed invincible now looked fragile. Smaller somehow, human. Ethan moved closer, his breath catching. 4 years, they had lived like strangers under the same name, connected only by blood and duty. But now, seeing him like this, the anger dissolved into something deeper. Something almost like grief. His father's eyelids fluttered. "Ethan." The word escaped weakly, like air leaving a balloon. "I'm here," Ethan said, his voice trembling. "I'm here, Dad." Gregory's eyes opened just enough to see his son. "You left everything. The company. Your life." "I had to," Ethan whispered. "I needed to find out who I was without all of it." A faint smile flickered on Gregory's lips. "You sound like your mother. She always said I'd lose you if I kept you in my shadow." Ethan's throat tightened. "You didn't lose me. I just needed to see what mattered." Gregory reached for his son's hand, his grip surprisingly firm. "Then don't waste what you've learned," he rasped. "Power isn't the enemy, son. It's how you use it that defines you." The machines beeped slower now. Gregory's gaze drifted toward Amara, standing quietly in the doorway, eyes wet. "She's the one, isn't she?" he asked faintly. Ethan turned, startled, then nodded. "Yes." Gregory's lips curved faintly. "Then hold on to her. And be better than I ever was." His breathing grew shallow, words fading between sighs. "Forgive me. For being too proud to tell you. I was proud of you." And just like that, the monitor flatlined, one endless echoing tone that broke something inside Ethan forever. He didn't cry right away. He stood there, frozen, hand still wrapped around his father's cooling fingers. Then Amara stepped forward, placing her arms around him, and the dam finally broke. The tears came in silence, not just for loss, but for everything unspoken between them. The funeral that followed was a spectacle. reporters, business partners, faces that wore grief like a costume. But Ethan stood apart from them, no longer the heir they expected him to be. He listened to their rehearsed condolences, nodded politely, but his thoughts were far away, with the man who had finally said what he'd needed to hear all his life, moments before it was too late. After the ceremony, the family lawyer handed him an envelope sealed in his father's handwriting. Inside was a single letter and a key. Ethan. Asterisk, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I've left you something. Not a company, not money, but a chance to start again. Go to the old farmhouse near the lake. Your mother loved that place. Maybe you'll find what we both lost there, peace. Asterisk. The next day, Ethan and Amara drove to the countryside. The lake glimmered under the fading sun, and the farmhouse, worn but full of quiet charm, stood surrounded by wildflowers. It was nothing like the marble towers of the city, but it felt real. It felt alive. Inside, dust floated in golden light. Old photographs lined the walls, Ethan as a child, his mother's gentle smile, his father's arm awkwardly around them both. On the mantel, a faded picture of his parents in their youth, laughing freely, before business hardened them. He stood there for a long time, the silence around him soft and forgiving. This place, Amara whispered, running her fingers along the window frame. It feels like it remembers love. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe that's what he wanted me to find. They spent days there, repairing the porch, painting the walls, planting flowers by the edge of the lake. Slowly, laughter returned. It wasn't the loud, glittering kind the world expected of him. It was gentle, shared in small moments. When Amara laughed, it felt like sunlight breaking through after years of storm. One evening, as twilight brushed the sky with pink and silver, they sat on the porch, watching ripples move across the water. The air smelled of rain and new beginnings. Ethan turned to her. You know, when I first came to your house, I thought I was escaping my world. But now I think, maybe I was being led to yours. Amara smiled softly. Maybe both of us were just trying to find home. He took her hand, holding it as if it anchored him. Do you think people like us can ever escape the weight of who we were? She looked at him, eyes steady. You don't escape it. You grow around it, like trees breaking through stone. Her words settled into him, deep and true. For the first time, Ethan felt the world align. Not perfect, not painless, but honest. Months passed. The farmhouse became their refuge. Ethan didn't return to the corporate empire. Instead, he started something new, a foundation for underprivileged workers, offering education and housing. He used his wealth not as armor, but as a tool for change. Amara became the creative director, designing programs for children who had dreams bigger than their circumstances. They worked side by side, their love deepening through shared purpose. But even in peace, life had its ways of testing what's real. One evening, Ethan received a letter from the board of Williams Enterprises. The company was failing without him. They wanted him back, begging him to restore what his father had built. He read it quietly, then handed it to Amara. If I go back, I'll lose this simplicity. But if I don't, thousands of employees might suffer. Amara studied his face for a long moment. Then don't choose between the two. Bring what you've learned to that world. Maybe that's how you change it. Her words struck him deeper than any business advice ever could. The next morning, Ethan stood again in front of the same skyscraper he once fled. But this time, he wasn't the same man. He walked into the boardroom not as an heir, but as a leader with a vision, to rebuild from within, with compassion at the center. He looked at the executives, men who measured worth in profit and prestige, and spoke calmly. You taught me that power is everything. But my father's final lesson was this: power means nothing if it doesn't serve people. They listened, silent and uneasy. But Ethan didn't need their approval. The tide had already turned. Over the months that followed, the Williams Corporation transformed. Ethan opened schools, raised wages, and built housing for workers. The same tabloids that once mocked him now called him the billionaire with a servant's heart. But none of that mattered to him as much as the evenings he spent back at the lake, with Amara's head on his shoulder, the sound of crickets rising in the distance, and the peace of knowing he had finally become whole. One night, under a sky scattered with stars, Amara whispered, "Do you ever regret how everything happened?" Ethan thought for a moment, his thumb tracing small circles over her hand. "If I hadn't pretended to be someone else, I might never have found out who I really was." She smiled. "And who are you now?" He looked at her, the reflection of moonlight shimmering in her eyes. A man who finally understands that love, the kind that's real, doesn't ask for gold or power. It asks for truth. She leaned into him, their silhouettes merging against the moonlit water. The world had taken everything from him once, his name, his peace, even his trust, but in return it had given him what mattered most, the courage to live honestly and the grace to love deeply. And as the night deepened, a quiet breeze rippled through the trees, carrying the scent of wildflowers and rain, the same scent that had followed him since that first night he swept floors in her home. Only this time, he wasn't hiding anymore. He was home.